Well, good morning. This is day 6. I think I'm almost halfway through the journey now. We're in a small village called Muizon, I think it's called. Muizon, Muizon. And yeah, we're about 3 or 4 kilometres away from Reims. I was so tired yesterday. It was an exhausting day. And as you might be able to see out the window, or not, today's a grey day. And there's very light rain on the windshield. But yesterday, wow, what a day. It was a strange day in a way because maybe, I don't know, did I do more miles? I kind of want to say I did more miles. It was definitely a longer leg. I can't get the exact details. I'll whack it down here somewhere. There's going to be, do you know what? In these videos, when you see it, there's going to be shit ton of stuff going along here because of mispronunciations of things that I've forgotten or given you the wrong info, what have not. So asterisk, a lot of stuff like that's happening. I think it was probably one of the first of the longer of legs. I can't see because when you use Google Maps and you're doing a route, if you're doing it on the laptop, you can break it down into directions and it will tell you the distance and roughly how long it's going to take. But when you do it on the phone, the app on the phone doesn't allow you to see the distance anymore. You can only see the actual waypoints, and that's it. You've got no idea of the overall distance. I guess I could if I was to put from point A to point H, which is the last one, but then Google Maps won't necessarily follow the route that I've done with all the points in between, so it will just do a direct line, so it will be wrong. So anyway, in a roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is that I think it was a longer leg. Also because the first place that I was going back to, so I had to backtrack, but I only had to backtrack by about 9 kilometres, so it wasn't far. I went to a place called La Carrière des Armistices, but when I got there it wasn't open till 10, and I was there about 9:15, I think. And I was humming and hawing, and so I filled the time with getting some drone footage and some camera footage, etc. And then I thought, no, I'll wait till 10. And I'm so glad I did. It's a very small museum. It's really well laid out. It's done so cleverly in that the carriage sits in the middle and you walk down one side, and one side is all the First World War, and then you go around, and then when you come back the other side it's all to do with the Second World War. So I think it was quite clever the way it's laid out. It's a very clever layout. And if you're into wars, not that I'm into wars, but the history of war, etc., it's probably one of the most important places in history, you know, and so I think it is well worth seeing. It's in a very beautiful setting. It's in these woods. It's really quiet, and although the actual space of where they signed in during the First World War is different to what you see now. What there is now is what was there during the Second World War. And it was, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and it was quite eye-opening to see and to read all the various boards and listen to the audio commentary and stuff like that. And when you're walking out, I mean, there was a point that I was walking down this line to take some footage of a monument, and yeah, it was quite surreal, because in there's footage of Hitler walking down that same route, but this time flanked by hundreds of stormtroopers. So it was weird to walk down that same route and look around, but just see woods and trees and listen to the birds, etc. Very, very surreal. And what was quite interesting, now I didn't know whether you knew this, because I mean, I knew only recently that it was used twice. But the second time that it was used by Hitler was like a fingers up, basically. It was like retaliation from his point of view. My oh my, he was such a cunt. What a monumental cunt he was. So they'd taken that carriage after the First World War and made a monument out of it and built a museum, etc., and they put it in this museum because it meant something. It was the end of a great world war. There was and so, you know, it was a very important piece. And then along comes Hitler, who decides that he wants to create another great world war, but this time he wants to win, and he's going to win by all means. And so therefore, when he declares this great world war and puts all of his sanctions upon France, etc., after invading again, what does he do? He gets them to knock a massive fucking hole out of the museum, and they drag the carriage out and they put it into the exact spot where the first armistice was signed, and he did the dirty by making all his demands. My God, that man was tapped. Seriously tapped. But anyway, he got his comeuppance in the end. He took the coward's way out. But yeah, very interesting place. So that was the first thing. From there, I then drove to. I'm now driving west, and I passed a little place called Omblany Necropolis. This was on the way to Soissons, and I was on quite a busy road here, so I'd gone past where I'd stayed the night, and then I carried on. And yeah, it was right by the side of the road, if I remember. Quite a big one as well, really big cemetery. But that was just like a French cemetery. And then I carried on to Soissons. Soissons, wow. Soissons is such a beautiful city. Really, really nice. I tell you what, if any of you know of a beautiful French woman who lives in Soissons and wants to take this old dog and give him a home, let me know. I don't speak French, but I speak the language of love and a little bit of Spanish, if that helps. Soissons was so beautiful. Wow. Yeah, these grand chateaux around the edge, and then you've got these cobblestone streets and the remains of this abbey. It was the abbey that caught my eye. It was difficult to park, so I was going around down these cobblestone streets, couldn't find anywhere to park, and ended up going back onto the outskirts, and I found a sign that said parking gratuit, which I presume means free parking, but I only had an hour and a half, so I then had to hightail it back in on foot, made a beeline for the Abbey, which was stunning, and then I worked my way in, and I knew that there was a Commonwealth monument, USC WGC monument, and anyway, I saw this monument in the town square. I thought, go to the market square, because it was opposite the cathedral, so I thought there's got to be something there, and there was a monument there, but I think it was a monument for other things as well as the First World War. And I was looking on my phone trying to find where this thing was. I had no idea. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw a tourist office. I thought, hello, let's go over there. I went over there, spoke to the lady. She didn't speak English, but in my broken French and pointing, I was able to communicate with her. And she was like, oh, yeah, yes, it's just up here. It's just down the road here. Boom. So I went there, and there was this monument, which was quite spectacular. It was a really... In fact, yeah, I didn't realise, but all of the Commonwealth sort of war graves commission stuff that I've been seeing has all been grave sites, and then this was actually a monument, which I think was quite interesting. Hadn't seen one before, so I got footage of that, and then I looked down. There was the river, so I took a little trip down to the river just to get a shot of the river, and there was a baker's, and I thought, when in Rome, go into a bakery in France. So I did, and I bought myself a sandwich and a really nice pastry and a bottle of Coke. And I didn't know what was in the sandwich. I thought it was ham, and he was trying to explain. And then this gentleman came in who basically said to me in English, oh, it's pork. And I went, oh, that's fine, brilliant. I said, no, it's fine, I'll have that, thank you very much. And paid the €8 or whatever it was, and it was a mighty big sandwich, and the baker gave me a little cake. I thought it was quite sweet. I've never been given a cake by a baker before. And then I, on my way out, the guy who helped me, I was like, merci monsieur. And he was like, oh, absolutely no problem, back in English. So I felt really happy. I kind of skipped out of the baker's, went back to the van. But Soissons is very beautiful. You ever get a chance to see it. The cathedral is all being renovated as well. It looks like all the cathedrals all seem to be a smaller version of Notre Dame, and you know, unfortunately Notre Dame was destroyed, but I mean, I was lucky enough to see it when it was not destroyed, and Notre Dame really is quite a spectacular cathedral. And yeah, these two sort of square towers, but this one was missing one. I think they were either rebuilding that tower or what have not. And it had I guess what would be the west rosary window. I don't know if that's always the same, whether the huge rosary window is on a particular side of a cathedral or not. It's a bit like the one in York. It's got this big, huge rose window. But it was, yeah, it was really cool. So that was Soissons, and as I was driving along, I went through, you know, following my little route. There was a place called Fort du Conde, and I thought it'd be rude not to. I knew it was closed, so I went for it anyway, and go up this winding road up into the hills, and I managed to get the drone up and get some beautiful footage of it. But it was worth doing because it was a stronghold. It was a place that the Germans and the Allies were constantly fighting over. It was changing hands all the time because it was such a strategic point. You see that a lot. A lot of these castles and forts and places were changed hands a number of times because they were so incredibly important from a strategic point of view. But yeah, that was well worth going off the beaten track to get that. I'm so glad I did. Then I came down, I passed another monument called Berneuil-sur-Aisne. So I'm still following the path of the river that I stayed on the night before. And there was a British and French cemetery next to each other, so I got some footage of that. And then I headed for a place called Soupir, and Soupir was the end of no, it wasn't, getting ahead of myself here, but I went to a place called Soupir, and there was a monument there. But the reason, yeah, there was another interesting thing about Soupir, because just on the outside there was an Italian cemetery, and that's the first Italian cemetery I've seen, military cemetery. So I took footage of that, and then down the road there was a German and French cemetery. And just like the other day in Ham, where I was talking about British and Germans being laid to rest side by side, here were Germans and French laid side by side. And it was enormous. This cemetery was huge. It was 2 parts side by side, and then there was the road, and then across the other side of the road was another extension to the French part of the cemetery. And I got the drone over there to get some footage, just to see the size of it, because it was a big one. And the other different thing about it as well was that the German side, up to now, every German cross has just been a simple black cross, very, very simple, with a name, or I forget what their word is for unknown, but that's it, very simple black cross. This time the gravestones were crosses, but they were quite they were like that, they were quite chunky, and they were like a dark grey colour. So it was a very different feel to it. And again, a really, really beautiful setting. And then from Soupir, I then drove windy out of the valley up onto the plain. And I went to this next place, which was just awesome. It was a place called Caverne du Dragon. And I'm so glad I went to it. And I knew it was on my route. I just couldn't remember in which leg, because I'd seen it when I'd been doing all the research. I'd seen this place, and I was like, and every night I've been in trying to suss out, where is it on this thing, going through the Western Front app. I could never find it, and it's because it had a different name in the Western Front app. But once I'd put it into Google and I clicked on it, it came up with photographs. I was like, that's the place, because it's quite a modern building. And I was like, that's it, that's the place I was looking for. And I'm so glad I went to it. It was awesome. Basically, you go in, you've got a bit of an exhibition that you see on the outside, and there's a shop and a little cafe area. But you have to be guided into this place, so you get a guided tour. But I had a thing where you've got numbers that you punch in, so you've got like an English commentary, so I had that as well. And this lovely woman, Camille, took me down into the cavern, and it's really something to see. It's insane, this place. So basically, if I remember right, it was an old quarry, and the Germans had got it first, and they basically dug out and shored up defences in the remains of this quarry, and basically it was their base. And they dug tunnels that went further back into their lines of defence, where there were steps that you could come down into it, so there were places where they could bring reinforcements in, etc., etc. But it was a place where troops could go and rest and eat and cover from the shelling, you name it. And yeah, it's laid out almost, I guess, how it was left. You know, there's bits of old rusted helmets and spades and all sorts of stuff down there, and markings on the ceiling, and, you know, etchings and all sorts of stuff that have all been drawn and everything like that. And yeah, it's fascinating that I didn't get the figure as to how many housed, but there were a lot of soldiers down there. It had their command post, all sorts of stuff. It had a hospital there. They'd made a little church, and it even got to a point where they were actually burying dead in the same place that they were living in. It was unbelievable. They managed to dig down and get water from a well, and I was just like, oh my days. And they've put sort of, you know, it's really dimly lit. I mean, I tried to shoot it with a camera, but you won't really get much. But it's just one of these places just to experience. I mean, there's a bit that I went in where my head was touching the ceiling, but you can see down tunnels that have now caved in, or tunnels that they deliberately blocked off, etc., etc. And again, because it was such a strategic place, this cavern changed hands a number of times. And I think there was a point, I'm sure that they said there was a point where there was French and Germans in the same tunnel complex, literally divided by a wall. It was mental, and it's quite a tour. So you go around with a guy, because they go around with a torch for quite a lot of it, 'cause it's really dimly lit. And Camille spoke a little bit of English, so we were able to have a bit of chit chat along the way as well. And it lasts. I was there for a good hour. And it was cold down there as well. I hadn't got this on. I just got my hoodie on, and yeah, because I was thinking as we were going down, she was putting on a coat. I thought, oh, and my God, the temperature really changed. It was colder, because that was the other thing. Because when I walked into the museum was so hot. I was like, crikey, stifling. Just as well I didn't have this. I now know why it's so hot, because you spend an hour down in the cold, and then when you come up into this beautiful warmth. But when you go out, it's got this terrace, and the view that you can see is just stunning. And you look down and you can see where all the ridges where, you know, there was artillery emplacements, and where the French line was, where the no man's land was, etc., etc. But you look at it now and it's just glorious. It's just so beautiful. I was like, wow. So that was Cavern de Dragon, worth a see. And then from there I went to a very small little village called Corbony. Took a picture of the monument, the town hall, etc. Oh no, actually, was it town hall? It was a Hotel de Ville, that's it. And the post, it was a really nice post office. And that marked the end of the fourth leg. I've just completed the fourth leg. So I finished in a small place called Cordony, and I'm now heading for the first waypoint of the fifth leg, a small little place called Louvre, Loivre, Loivre or Louvre or Louvre, and then the second one after that is Reims. So at the moment I'm toying with, because it's 5 o'clock, coming up to 6. Do I tackle the city in the evening and just get it done? Because today I haven't done as many stop-offs and sites as I've done over the last couple of days. But then obviously I'm going slightly further. The distance of the actual leg is further, and I've stopped off at 2 museums today as well, so that always takes time. The last museum I've just been to, a place called Caverne du Dragon, is just insane. I mean, I'll talk about that tomorrow in my morning reflection. And then I was at the Le Carrière de Armistice, which is the train carriage where they did the signed the armistices and the treaties and stuff like that. And that museum didn't open till 10, so I was hanging around for a bit. But I'm so glad I did, because it was well worth seeing. So because of that, my day's kind of been sort of delayed ever so slightly. But I am on the 5th leg, so I'm a leg ahead as per the schedule, which is good. So the question is, do I go through Reims? Because I had to go through, where was it now? A city called Soissons, which was beautiful, absolutely stunning, but was really difficult to get the van where I wanted to get to. So in the end, was driving around, found the place eventually to park, but I only had an hour and a half, so I was then walking. I've done a lot of walking today and my back is killing me now, but because that city part took a lot out of me, and it took in terms of time and effort, I'm kind of toying with the idea, should I just do Reims this evening, just get it done? There's not a lot, I say there's not a lot to see there. I don't know what there is to see. Normally what I do is, for the towns and the cities, I just head for the centre and look for a monument or whatever, and then just go from there. So I'm figuring, do I just do that and get that bit out of the way, or do I go to this first stage, Love? There is a couple of parking spaces that I've looked on Park for Night. So I'm wondering if I might do that, have a little look, see what they look like, suss it out, and maybe stop off slightly earlier tonight, and then do Reims first thing in the morning, just get it over and done with, and then I can crack on. I think these next legs are going to be hard in terms of that they're longer distances, and yeah, trying to find all the bits and pieces of interest, the cemeteries, the monuments, etc. is getting harder for me at the moment. The other bit was easier because there are just more of them, and they're all grouped together, whereas now they're a bit stretched apart and everything. But then that's part of the fun of the journey, and it's the exploring and the hunting and everything. But at the same time, I'm concerned because I need to leave myself space. I think I need to leave myself space in these next 4 legs, because I think these are all around about 150k, and then the next, after this one, I think I start to go up into the hills and then potentially up into the mountains, getting close to the Swiss border. So that's where they're going to start to take their time. But it's been a beautiful day again. The sun has been out. I've been to 2 really good museums, seen some stunning countryside, some incredible cemeteries as well. I've seen some beautiful cemeteries today, and slightly different ones as well. And I've just stopped here at this monument on the road into Reims. And there's a couple of old tanks. That looks like a Second World War tank over there. But yeah, still following that Western Front line as much as possible. And yeah, it is so beautiful now. And yet again, I keep on saying this. It's just so hard to imagine how destructive it looked 100 years ago. But anyway, on to the first waypoint of the next leg. Let's get going. And so I was like humming and hawing, so I thought, okay, let's start the 5th leg, which I did. So I drove to a place called Louvre, and on the way I went past a British cemetery called La Ville aux Bois. And classic British cemetery. But what was quite different was right at the front there were two stones. One was a French cross and the other one was for a New Zealander, and then the rest were all British. It's right by a main road. It was the sort of like the main road going into Reims. And then I drove off there and I went to this place called Louvre, and got a bit of a monument. And I was looking because Park for Night had two places, so I went to look at the two places, but one had a height barrier, typical, and then the other one looked like I was going to be parking in the farmer's field, so I didn't really have the right to be where I was. So I was like, this ain't going to work. And then I saw a sign for a German cemetery, so I thought, let's go for the German cemetery. At least I've got something else from Louvre. And oh my days, I was following the signs, and then I get to this track, and I'm like, really? And I look on Google Maps, and I go into satellite mode, and sure enough, it's down the track, and I'm like, come on, Neo, you always like to do Project Amber, off-roading. So down we went in this track. And it was bumpy as anything. My fillings were being shook out. Granny's crockery was all over the floor. It was just clinging and clanging, and it was just like... Fortunately, the ground was hard, which was good. Bumping our way down, and I could see this copse of trees in the distance. I thought, that's it. And I was like, that's a long way. That's got to be over a kilometre away. I'm thinking to myself. Anyway, kept going, and then I got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to risk that. That now looks not muddy, but it just wasn't well worn, and I was like, So I sort of pondered and I scratched the old chin, and I was like, no, right, let's not risk it for a biscuit. Let's do a little Yui, wait here, and I'll walk. So I then walked to the cemetery, and it was gorgeous. Just a very small cemetery. Some was sort of going down, and the classic standard German cemetery with the black crosses, and it just looked really nice. Just in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I walked there, and then I walked back, and then when I got back to the van, I decided to put the drone up. I was going to originally do the drone, and I was humming and hawing, so I thought, no, it'll go there, and I'll have to land it, and then I've got to walk to get it anyway. But then, so I didn't. God, it takes me 10 minutes to describe something that happened in 30 seconds. And then I walked there, walked back, and then I thought, let's put the drone up anyway. So I did, because I wanted to show the distance between the van and it, because it took me nearly 10 minutes to walk there. No, less than that, 7 minutes. So I took the drone up, went there, did a little loop round, and then it was going beep beep right, and then I flew it all the way back, and I just had enough to get it back and land back at the van. And I was like, that's a successful day. And then it was time to look for a place to stay, and my what a palaver. So Louvre didn't have suitable places. I decided that I wasn't going to do Reims, so I thought, well, let's get myself on the old Park for Night, have a little look-see, see what's what. Found the place out. It was about 11 kilometres away, but it was closer to Reims, so I thought, that's okay, that would do me. And it was out in the countryside, parking place, boff. Now, here's the thing. It said in the notes we got there and it was a lovely time, apart from the fact that we were woken at 8:30 in the morning by loads of cars pulling in. There was a walking club, but this was a Saturday. I thought, that's okay, because it's Wednesday. So I drove there through some beautiful villages, and you're going through like the Champagne region and everything. It's a gorgeous countryside. And I see the car park and it's full of fucking cars. I mean, like, it's absolutely rammed. There's no chance that I'm getting myself in it. I was like, this is typical. It's full of cars. There's not a fucking soul to be seen. So I was like, right. So I drive past to then find somewhere to now reevaluate my situation. And out the corner of my eye, I see coming down a path a blokey with a stick with all of his followers behind him. It's like Moses parting the sea as he comes trundling along with all these fucking walkers in tow. I'm like, but by the time they get from there to the cars, take their boots off, have a cup of tea, have a natter, you know, bonjour, 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 etc., etc., you're like, oh. So anyway, I then look for another park up, and I come to this park up, and it's in this residential area called Muizon, and I got here and I was like, and I did do a little UE, and I was about to go, and then when I looked on Google Earth, it actually said air de camping, actually on Google Earth itself. So at that point I was like, okay, I don't feel so bad, because it felt like it was just a normal car park, and I was like, But when it had air to camping, I was like, okay, you don't have to pay, it's free, it's just a big, you could probably, I reckon you could get 12 vans in here, and I was the only one here. There's a little road here, occasional car goes by, hardly hear a thing, just surrounded by houses. Ironically enough, remember what I said yesterday about having heebie-jeebies with cemeteries? Just up the hill here, there's a cemetery. It's just a civilian cemetery. But yeah, spent the night here. I was on a slight slope, it kind of like pitches like that. So the back was down a little bit, but it didn't affect me. I slept like a log. And yeah, been up this morning. I've been rabbiting a lot. I know I've been rabbiting a lot. That's because I'm killing time. Because I've decided that I'm not going to go into Reims. And I'm sad about that, because I really wanted to. But the reason why I'm not going in is because it has a low emissions zone. So I can't go in. I don't have the pass. And you've got to have the sticker. I didn't think about it. I knew of Reims. I didn't realise it was a low emissions city, and you need to order these things in time. And then I looked to see if there's no park and rides. There's nothing like that. I could probably go to park in a supermarket and ask around and see if I can get a bus or a tram in or anything. But then it's just going to take a load of time. And so I was thinking about it last night, and I was humming and hawing, and I feel bad because I really wanted to see it, but I then thought at the same time, I've probably missed so many things already anyway, and this trip, as much as it is about seeing cemeteries and monuments and museums and everything, which I've done a ton of, it's also about the journey as well. It's about looking at and enjoying the countryside and seeing what is now, 100 years later, something very, very beautiful, which once was complete hell on earth. And so it is about the journey as well. So maybe I'll come back to Reims on another trip and just book a hotel and stay there, because and it's a shame, because this is now the second time I've passed Reims, because the first time I drove through on the motorway, and I had my kids with me, and it was when we went to Chalons in Champagne to see the Tour de France go by. And we were about to go past Chalons, actually. We'll go past the north of it. So yeah, it's the second time, so sorry Reims. But yeah, it's hard now, because the thing is you know, I'm following the app as much as the route I take follows the app as much as it can, bearing in mind that the app is a walking app, so it's going to go through farmers' fields and stuff, so I have to sort of deviate a lot. You're looking at signs, you're looking for this, you're looking for that, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I miss, you know. At the end of the day, there's over 3,000 cemeteries, you know, I'm not going to catch them all. God knows how many monuments there are. There must be thousands of monuments. I do feel that I've probably got some of the better things and important things, so I'm going to skirt round Reims today, and then I'm going to go to the third point, which is a castle which opens at 10 o'clock, so it's in 40 minutes time. So I'm going to make a beeline for this little old fort which is on the edge of Reims, and then I'll work my way down. I'm hoping to get to Verdun. I don't know how many kilometres this is. I think it's about 150 kilometres, but I'm already part of the way in. It's a grey day and it's raining, so you know, I might not be stopping as much, and we'll just see what's there, eh? So I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.